So they did a fantastic job. She was very impressed with the experience in general. So now we started like recommending this to our family and friends. Like, hey, if you need some like dental work, you should actually consider going to El Salvador because you can fly there, stay there, get the work done, fly back home, and still save tons of money doing that.
Gabe, we got you back down here.
Yes.
It's pretty good. It was what, last time you were here in November, so
yeah.
we got you back before being a full year.
Yeah, it's good to be back. We're looking forward to it. So
I appreciate you jumping straight off the plane into the studio. So if you're yawning or anything during that thing, you have good excuse.
No,
you guys have a good flight this morning?
Great flight. Everything went smooth, so we're good.
What time did you have to leave?
A little early, like 6 a.m. this morning.
That's not too bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
I got to wake up pretty much that early to take my boys to school in the morning. So same thing.
So it wasn't really Bitcoin that brought you down here this time, though.
Yeah, no, it wasn't actually, which is surprising even to me. But.
So last time you were here, we were doing a missions in Bitcoin conference after adopting Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And your wife there had like took a spill, I think, or somehow like chipped her tooth.
Yeah. So we were trying to do a nice hike in the mountains to go see the waterfalls, and it had just rained earlier that morning, so everything was really slippery. And 5 minutes into this hike, she took a spill and face planted right into a rock. Chipped her front tooth.
And she had like
half.
perfect teeth. When I saw her, I was
has
like,
immaculate teeth.
Oh,
and
I thought she had veneers because her teeth were so perfect.
Yeah.
She's like, no, these are my real teeth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man.
she takes pride in her teeth, and she's taking care of them, very good care of them. So she was freaking out about what to do. We had just got here. It was our first day. We were staying for 10 days that week. So she wasn't sure if she should fly back home to the States and get it fixed or... So we made some calls, and then you suggested, hey, there's some pretty good dentistry here. So why don't you check that out? And sure enough, we did. Made some calls, visited the place, and we were in and out in a matter of like an hour and a half, totally fixed up.
And she looked good as new. I mean, it was like
you can't tell. You still can't tell.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't stained or discolored or anything. You cannot tell that half of her tooth was missing.
Yeah, I was
shocked. So they did a fantastic job. She was very impressed with the experience in general. So now we started like recommending this to our family and friends. Like, hey, if you need some like dental work, you should actually consider going to El Salvador because you can fly there, stay there, get the work done, fly back home, and still save tons of money doing that.
And get a free vacation out of it.
Yeah, so. And then you're in a gorgeous country, so not bad.
Plus, I believe that dentist takes Bitcoin too, so there's that benefit.
We're gonna do that.
Well, whatever excuse you guys need to come down, I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, well, I mean, this might be a really good excuse for a regular rotation of coming down, getting our teeth checked out, or dental work done, and then going back home.
No, it works out. You get to kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
So I know we got to spend a little bit of time last November, but I never actually heard your Bitcoin story, and I got bits and pieces of what the business, the Blockworks, is that correct?
BlockSpaces.
BlockSpaces, sorry. And so I got bits and pieces of it, but I'm looking forward to you actually filling in the details for me.
Yeah.
And I think you guys just recently or doing a raise that you said you got some exciting things coming. So
Yeah, we hope to announce our capital raise in the next couple months.
awesome. So yeah, we can delve in that. So, but first, how did the Bitcoin thing hit you?
Yeah.
And then how did you wind up connecting with Jimmy Song and the rest of the crew to write the Thank God for Bitcoin book?
Yeah.
Hey guys, just a brief interruption. We'll get back to the exciting show here, but I just want to really ask a favor that you guys could make sure that you're subscribed if you're watching this on YouTube. If you are listening to this on a podcast, please take a second and review this. You don't even have to write a lengthy review or anything at all. Just click the number of stars that you want to give us. It really helps us in the algorithms to make sure people are finding out about what's happening here. All right, back to the show.
Yeah. So my journey started in late 2012. It was around the first halving when I came across, or what I remember coming across Bitcoin. It was it probably hit me earlier than that, and it just didn't register because I was very steeped in following the Ron Paul presidential campaign runs in 2008 and 2012. So he's the one that it was the pre-orange pilling, learning about how the Federal Reserve works, how our monetary system works, what fiat currency even means, right? He kind of popularized that. So those libertarian circles is where Bitcoin...
It's funny how many people like Ron Paul led into Bitcoin before Ron Paul was even probably aware of Bitcoin.
Right,
so.
yeah. Well, I'm sure he was made aware of it pretty early on too, but, whenever you first hear of Bitcoin, you're immediately skeptical of it, and rightfully so.
It sounds like a Ponzi scheme.
It totally sounds like a scam, and everything before it and arguably after it has been. So it's definitely warranted to have that kind of skepticism when you first come across it. So asking all the questions, and I'm a technologist at heart too. I went to college for computer hardware engineering. So,
but it's interesting because I knew you had that background, but you came into it from the monetary side, because that's the side I came in. I'm not a technologist at all.
Yeah.
Anybody who sent me an email to my Earthlink email knows that. So,
Right.
But you were in that space, but it was still the monetary side of it that drew you in
it was both things, right?
Yeah.
So I was very interested in technology always, but after Ron Paul pre-orange pilling me, then I learned how important all this monetary stuff was. And so, when Bitcoin came across, it hit me like, oh, wow, this could be a solution to where the gold standard failed. So that's when I started digging deeper on the technology, like, okay, how does this actually work? And is it possible that this could work? Because it was very much still in question whether or not Bitcoin was going to survive at that point. It was still very new. It was very nascent industry ecosystem. Everybody in Bitcoin knew each other at that time. So,
well, that's what a lot of people that kind of come in more recently, they're like, oh, I missed the boat, and I should have invested back then. It's actually back then the risk reward was probably skewed way worse than it is now. The risk reward now 100%. Is probably better than it's ever been.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah, totally. And I try to convince people of that, and rarely do I get taken up on that. But it's funny because, looking back, I was saying the exact same thing then. Oh, I missed the boat. This thing's already been operational for 3.5, 4 years. Shot up from 0 to, I think it was like $10. So I literally thought the same exact thing. Missed the boat.
Everybody thinks that when they buy.
Everybody thinks that.
I missed it. I should have got in when it was $1, but it's $10 now.
But what people fail to understand is how big of an opportunity Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
And that's where and it's even now it's hard to size up, right? How early we actually are in this endeavor, because it's taking on such a massive opportunity that may not ever happen again. We don't know. So that's what you try to convince people, and I've been also running meetups. I think I have the longest standing running Bitcoin meetup in the world.
Really?
Yeah. So I started the meetups in 2014 in Tampa, and have been keeping it going for over 10 years now. So there are older meetups, but they're not active. We've been consistently active.
That's
meeting.
a long stretch to keep things
we
going.
have almost
a lot of bear markets.
Yeah. There's lots of times it was only just me and somebody else nerding out on Bitcoin. But I set out to keep it something that people can rely on as a source of information and knowledge about what this thing is.
So did you get into you were working some other technology job, and how long did it take you to move into start working in the Bitcoin space, and what was that kind of transformation like for you?
So I was primarily in the construction industry. So that was another thing. I worked for a land surveyor. I was in office. I wasn't out actually doing the surveys. I was transporting the field notes into computer designs. I had a nice cushy...
Sounds very exciting.
And it's very boring. And I got to the point where I could just do it on autopilot. So, which was actually really good for me, because then I can consume Andreas Antonopoulos YouTube videos on Bitcoin and just learn all day about as much as I could about Bitcoin. And of course, back then there was very little resources. Now there's almost too much that you can't even trust most of it. But that's how I learned primarily. It's just digging in, consuming a bunch of information as much as I could while doing my work. But yeah, that afforded me a level of knowledge and information that I could consume faster probably than most people. Just because the nature of my job was easy enough to enable that. But yeah, that's
your company basically sponsored your Bitcoin.
They kind of did, and eventually they lost me because I was like, "All right, I'm out." Nobody at the office would listen to me to buy Bitcoin back then either. So, sorry guys. But so being in the construction industry during that time, I saw the 2007-2008 financial crisis hit the housing market, because we were super busy in 2006. I was pulling double time hours trying to get all the work that was, flooded the market at the time. But then when that crash hit, it was like a brick wall. Like everything stopped. Our office, it was a small family-owned office, but they had to let go of most of the draftsmen. I was the lucky one to be able to keep my job, but they had to let go of people because literally,
it was like it hit a brick wall. It just went from gangbusters
to months
to nothing
without anything to do, literally. So the owner was bleeding money, just keeping people on payroll. But yeah, it was horrible. So that led me, going down the whole Ron Paul financial crisis rabbit hole. Like, okay, how could this happen to the United States of America? We're supposed to be the biggest, baddest, most powerful nation, richest nation. How can something so terrible and so vast happen to us? So yeah, learning about the monetary system, how corrupt it is, how it is itself kind of pretty much a Ponzi scheme, just massive scale.
Which is so funny because that's, including myself, that's the first thing I thought when I came into Bitcoin. That's what everybody says, Ponzi scheme. But we got the biggest Ponzi scheme of all sitting right in front of us, and everybody thinks that's normal.
Yeah, but because we're all entrenched in it, and there was no other answer, right? Even after the gold standard, after the gold standard, there's literally no way to really exit that system. You were forced into it. So until Bitcoin came along, you had no other options. So yeah, that's what kind of led me down this whole endeavor and rabbit hole, and now my whole life revolves around Bitcoin in some way, shape, or form.
So, at what point did you move and decide you wanted to work in the Bitcoin space? And did you start something yourself right away, or did you go work somewhere else?
Well, so I started the meetups, and
Okay.
that's kind of that led into the business. So, after a couple of years of the meetups, it was really the 2017 kind of bubble that we went into, that afforded me and my partner, now fiance, soon to be wife, Rosa. We started our company BlockSpaces, which initially it was kind of like a community hub, right? Like like what you have here, and like what Bitcoin Park does, and um, Bitcoin Commons in Austin. So it was like that. We were like a dedicated community organization to where people can come and just learn about Bitcoin information stuff. Because
Did you guys have like a physical location?
yeah,
that was,
we
Nice.
had a physical location because I was trying to organize these meetups at like bars and restaurants, and during that run up, prior to that run up, it was super easy because it was only a handful of us.
Yeah.
I can RSVP a table for
Yeah.
5 or 6 and it'd be fine. After that, though, we had hundreds of people trying to come out to these meetups and learn, and we had anybody from entrepreneurs to developers to engineers, or people that wanted to mine. So we had all these interests coming, trying to learn and get more information. So that's when I was like, man, well, first of all, this is a logistics nightmare for me, just organizing these things, trying to find a suitable place to do that, to host that, and there was so much to try to tackle because people come at this from different areas of interest. So that's when we decided to, hey, let's just get a space, and we can kind of rent it out, do a membership deal.
This was in 17?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty early, probably too early. Well, actually, it was too early because we had to pivot. So yeah, that's how BlockSpaces started. We were a physical location, physical space for learning about Bitcoin in Tampa, and that we hosted all our meetups there. We had something going on pretty much every night of the week. We had we had mining Mondays, trading Tuesdays, like a general meetup on Wednesdays for newbies incoming, a developer night on Thursday nights, learning about programming this stuff. And then Fridays, we might have like a special guest, or started seeing documentaries come out. So we would just have like a
So this
movie
time,
night.
this was your full-time
That
work.
was
This is what you were
thing.
doing.
Yeah, and I self-funded it for a while, as much as I could, until I actually had something else we could talk about that impacted me. It was right after we opened the business. During that run-up, I actually got SIM swapped, and I got hacked, and they stole pretty much all my Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah. It was right after we opened the business. I was self-funding it, so I was obviously relying on that.
And that was early days. I don't think I even heard of SIM swapping at that point.
No, it was like the first kind of round where it really hit members in the industry.
Okay.
Actually, my carrier, when I called them and told them what was going on, because I've heard of it happening. I mean, my friends were getting hit. So I knew about it. I understood it. I didn't know how to protect myself, though, and kind of nobody did. But even my carrier was like, "We've never heard of this." Yeah. So that was like the first kind of phase of SIM swaps really hitting, people in this industry specifically.
So I'm assuming that means you were holding your Bitcoin on one of the exchanges then.
No, it was actually a private wallet. But what I failed to do was I had inadvertently left my seed phrase backup on my online Google Drive, and you never ever put your keys online.
No.
And I knew that, but I think I was like I was in the middle of transferring from one wallet to another, and I must have just forgot. I was like, oh, this is gonna be temporary. I don't need the seat anymore. Anyway, so but it was just a simple mistake, and I even had well, I thought I had two-factor on Google, but Google had it set up to where you had to put your phone number in order to enable all the other two-factor options at the time. I don't know if it's like that anymore, but if it is, you gotta watch for that. You gotta put your number, but then go back. You have to go back and take it out to disable that.
Wow.
So it was like just a series of unfortunate circumstances during that specific time. If it had happened a month earlier, that it wouldn't have happened because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Man,
So-
that is, well, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And that's great for people to,
yeah,
because people think, people tell people not to ever save their seed phrases on their computer, but people think, what will it hurt? And so it's,
yeah, you don't think you're going to be a target, but what you got to understand is, the hackers are very sophisticated, especially now, and they know how to target people.
Oh, they have targeted me and made my life a nightmare with my email. I mean, they have taken it over like 10 times. Luckily, I don't. It's funny because they found like little wallets that I didn't even remember ever having. Maybe I had like 100,000 sats in them or something. They drained those, but I didn't even remember that I had those wallets because early days you're trying all these different things, and fortunately I don't keep anything that would impact my life. But they even my wallet of Satoshi, they were able to, and I think I had a couple 100,000 sats in that they drained. But it was like, wow. I mean, they specifically targeted me, and they went after my Google Drive, and they found any account that I had that labeled anything with Bitcoin in it. You could tell that they had opened and went through and read it. Yeah. There were none, didn't have anything to do with my seed phrases. I never stored anything, fortunately, like that. But they took the time to go through like, hundreds of documents and find the ones that had anything related to Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
And like, it was, it was scary.
They got
I was
scripts
like,
that just rip through all of your stuff and they know exactly what they're looking for, and they're very efficient.
Yeah.
So I was even online when it was happening.
Really?
So I saw it. I was witnessing it happening in real time. So it was terrible.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm sure even thinking about it now makes your stomach knot up a little bit. So.
I mean, it happened for a reason.
Yeah.
That's what I chalk it up to.
So, but you didn't let that defeat you. You were more positive about Bitcoin than ever after that. And,
because that's the thing is you can't. I mean, it's not Bitcoin's fault, right? I did something I knew I shouldn't have done. I mishandled my private keys, which is like Bitcoin 101, and I knew better, and I teach other people that not to do that. So yeah, it's not eating my own dog food really bit me. Yeah. So definitely learned the hard way, but definitely don't hold it against Bitcoin. Regardless of how much Bitcoin I have, I still think supporting it and getting other people informed about it and why it exists and why they should own some is far more important than how much Bitcoin I have personally. So
but even being willing to share your story just to hopefully help others avoid. The other thing is never take, a lot of times people want to take pictures of their seed phrase, and that's very easy for them to go through and find. That's the first thing they look for.
Putting your seeds in any digital medium is a bad idea. Yeah.
Well, so after that, after that,
the business, we started actually we became known as like this, center for information and services around Bitcoin and other blockchain technologies at the time. Ethereum was really hot at that time as well, and all these other like pseudo blockchains, I call them, like Hyperledger, were coming out for enterprise use cases. So we started actually getting businesses coming to us for consulting and development work. So we started getting into actually building things. So we worked with enterprises, institutions, universities, even some government agencies as well, and just started building applications for them.
What type of applications? Just
Yeah, well, like I call it something blockchain, right? That's what like the CTO was tasked
yes,
when it was
that
super
was when
hot.
it was all blockchain, not
Totally,
Bitcoin. Like that was
totally, yeah. So it was all the rage. So we were building like track and trace systems, identity management solutions, payment solutions as well. And that's once we started diving down payments, that's when I was like, I was really keen on Lightning being kind of like the thing that needs to proliferate as much as possible. So that's when we kind of shifted a lot of our effort towards supporting Lightning, building Lightning applications that were, business friendly, that could be adopted by businesses. So we actually built the first integration into QuickBooks Marketplace, where you can issue a Lightning invoice as a business or get it paid in Lightning, but it reflects in your QuickBooks as paid. So even though QuickBooks doesn't natively obviously support Lightning,
yeah.
at least not yet, our application would enable that.
And then, so you were still running the center, but also building things on the side, or did you shut down the center, or how did
we
that?
shut down the center. Actually, the building got shut down. So quick funny story about the building that we were in. It was a old data center, and they were actually mining Bitcoin. So they had like 1,000 like S9 miners, I guess, at the time, in the back of the building, and we were like in the front of the building. So that was kind of cool. But they kept blowing up transformers. And one time the building actually caught on fire. Like literally from the transformer line, the whole line caught on fire into the building. So we had to evacuate. But and then later the building was condemned because it was like an old building anyway. So it had a lot of problems. Not to mention the mining operation that was running out of there. But we shut that down and just focused on software at that point. But now we have actually a Bitcoin Bay Foundation out of Tampa, which is a nonprofit 501c3 nonprofit that we have kind of a dedicated co-work space that we partnered up with another organization where we run a bunch of events as well.
And is your meetup? Is it the Bitcoin Bay meetup, or is that something separate?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I've definitely heard of that.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We're getting some notoriety. We're going to be doing some pretty big things in the new year as well.
Okay. Awesome. So what do you guys have in the works at your company? You said that you guys have some. I don't know what you can share, what you can. Announce,
No, I'm happy to share.
What are you guys focusing on now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we did a large focus on Lightning, supporting Lightning. We were at LSP for a little bit, managing, companies, Lightning nodes at an enterprise scale. But there's a bigger opportunity we see right now, which is how to leverage Lightning for utilizing Bitcoin as a collateral asset. So, given the collapses that we saw a couple of years ago with FTX, BlockFi, Celsius, et cetera, what really ticked me off about that was they're piggybacking on the narrative of Bitcoin and crypto in general, decentralization, decentralized finance, yada, yada. But they're totally not. They're just running a typical, financial business and doing it in a scammy way.
Yeah.
Which is precisely what we can prevent with this technology. What Bitcoin's supposed to prevent is from that happening. Of course, if you're not using it in that way, you can't prevent it. So we really dug into how can we enable, namely financial institutions that want to leverage Bitcoin not only as a financial asset, but also its underlying protocol, because it's very secure, it's transparent. It's all these. You have all these properties that make it so resilient to being susceptible to fraud, right? So that's what we started diving down, is how can we really create a mechanism or application that businesses, financial institutions can utilize to adopt Bitcoin, but not only as an asset class, as a new substrate for a financial system to be built on top of. Because right now, everything that's done in fiat is very fragile at best, and a lot of people don't know.
Can you give me like a real life example of what, like, taking a company that's using the fiat system and what you think you could change?
Well, so this is digging all the way down, right? So every financial institution, when they do business with each other, they post some kind of collateral, right? Because they don't trust each other, right?
Yeah.
So it all comes down to that fundamental trust aspect. So they operate on collateral. Now, right now, that collateral is some kind of fiat collateral, right? Whether it's treasury bills or bonds, or it could be commodities as well, real estate, some kind of asset. But then they have to value that. So they have to trust how that's being valued. And then they have to trust that the other person actually has that collateral, which has to run through centralized clearing parties. And so you have to trust those. And those take a long time to actually reconcile any kind of disputes, or if they need to clear collateral. So there's just a bunch of opportunity for shenanigans to happen, and they do happen, and they happen in very large scale. So and that's the whole rehypothecation of assets comes from that.
We've seen that where all these,
Totally.
they've gone to all these different, brokers or agencies, and they've, said, hey, we have this as collateral, but they've already told 10 other people.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're posting the same collateral 4 or 5 different times. So at any given moment, you actually, as a financial institution, you don't know exactly what your exposure is if there's a downturn in the market, or a trade goes upside down. And that's when we get these collapses, because they cascade in a fashion, because it's just like dominoes falling. Everybody's scrambling to liquidate their position, and it's up to the clearinghouse to decide who owns what at what point. So it's a complete mess, and that's why our position is that we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the most pristine collateral asset that we have, that we can know of. The trick is, okay, how do we make Bitcoin that underlying infrastructure to then build these financial tools on top of? So there's a more substantial financial infrastructure at bottom, and you can guarantee you own what you say you own, or what you're posting as collateral. So that's what we've kind of built. We've built a system that does that, and we actually leverage Lightning, not the network, but just the peer-to-peer protocol, to set up bilateral contracts and trades between institutions. So you post your Bitcoin to this Lightning channel, and so it's transparent to both parties, and you can't have a Lightning channel if there's no Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So you literally can't rehypothecate. It's not even possible, which is the point.
Yeah.
So this ensures that you can actually trust that you're underwriting asset, or that's the asset that's underwriting these financial contracts and obligations with this other party is actually there and it's sound, and you can prove it, and it's transparent.
So explain it to me like I'm a 50-year-old who still uses Earthlink email. I understand if it's in the Lightning channel, you can verify that it's there, but they could still just force close the transaction, and it's not a guarantee that you would actually receive that Bitcoin, correct?
Yeah.
So so explain to me how that works. How do they have security that they know they actually have access to that collateral?
Yeah, so this gets into kind of like our underlying infrastructure setup. So the way we've organized this is that we're a non-custodial party in this setup, but we set it up to where we instantiate the counterparty's nodes for them on their behalf, so they don't really have to know anything about Lightning. And then we have remote signers as well. So on LND, you can have these remote signers that actually hold the keys.
Okay.
And then you have the watch-only nodes that are kind of watching what is transpiring in the channel.
So you guys would serve as basically the intermediary that decides if there's a dispute, if the collateral should be who it should go to.
Yep. Well, so what we've actually designed is what we're calling Lightning Smart Channels. And so we'll be coming out with a white paper on this in standard Bitcoin fashion, which is essentially a state machine or smart contract application that can be embedded into the Lightning nodes. And that will enforce the collateral movements based on whatever the terms of the contract are. So you can think of it like a smart contract, except it's off-chain. It's not on-chain. So it's not relying on Bitcoin primitives except for Lightning. It's all 100% built on Lightning. So that's what is kind of orchestrating the movements. And with the remote signers, we don't have access to the funds, the actual funds. The counterparties maintain those in our setup.
It can only go to one of one of the two parties that are involved. Okay.
Yeah. So if there is a dispute, there's already plenty of legal frameworks where these kinds of transactions are set up with internationally. So if there is a dispute, it would be like a legal dispute, if anything. So that could be handled in the typical fashion. Yeah. But as far as the underlying, the important thing, what we see with this system is that the important thing is that you know your collateral position. As a financial institution, you know exactly how much risk you're undertaking and what your exposure is in the market with your counterparties. And so there's no second guessing, and there's no need for a clearinghouse either, because essentially the Lightning channel is the clearing agent. And you can liquidate. Bitcoin's a very liquid asset, so you can liquidate it and get out of your position if you need to very quickly. So that would it's meant to speed up that entire underlying infrastructure process of what undergirds all financial institutional contracts right now.
So that makes a lot of sense. I'm just curious as to what type of, anytime you introduce something new into a space, even though people know the existing system is broken, they're used to it. And so it's actually less scary to them, even though they know it doesn't work, than trying something new. So what has that been like for you guys as you've approached companies? Do they get it right away? Is this going to be like a slow process for them to become comfortable with it? What have you experienced?
Yeah, so it's going to be a process for sure. We're starting with institutions that are already in the space, already very Bitcoin forward, as it were, and specifically miners, because they need better hedging strategies, and this can accommodate that. This kind of system.
That makes sense. And for them, the underlying Bitcoin component is a plus, not a negative. And
Totally,
So,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So we're getting into
And they're handling large amounts of funds with their electricity contracts and equipment
Exactly.
contracts, and
exactly. Yeah. And so they need to hedge the volatility risk, obviously, but also. Going forward, we see this as an opportunity for miners to actually capitalize on BlockSpace itself. Our company's name is BlockSpaces, so this is kind of apropos, but we think
but
there will
that
be.
was named long before you thought of this idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
like that.
I mean, I always knew BlockSpace was a very valuable aspect of Bitcoin,
Yeah.
right? And it's just not priced in yet because we've had the subsidy. But of course, we all know that's going away, and eventually miners will have to be sustained on fees, a fee market. And so we think BlockSpace is going. Miners aren't going to be producing Bitcoin. They're going to be They're actually producing BlockSpace, and so that is the commodity that they need to start thinking about. That's what they're selling. Mm-hmm. That's their product. And so our mechanism should be able to help them sell that as like all mature commodity markets have. There's forward contract markets that you can pre-sell that commodity in the future.
So they would, like the bigger pools would know that they're producing a certain number of blocks on average in a day. And so companies could come to them and say, hey, we want at any time to be able to guarantee that our transactions will get confirmed. Exactly. And so we're willing to pay a certain amount for you to prioritize our transactions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fee market, except right now we're used to everything happening in real time.
Yeah.
But for a more mature market, commodity market, this has to happen in the future, right? So
they'll have like year-long contracts of like, hey,
yeah.
you'll confirm this many,
exactly.
within this amount of time, and
this many V bytes per sats, and there'll be some market rate for that. So yeah, we see that's how Bitcoin's evolving. So there needs to be underlying infrastructure to support those kinds of contracts.
Yeah, and that's good for the miners too, because they know they can lock in a certain rate. It's good for the people that are looking to have their transactions confirmed, because they know they're not going to get hit with some crazy spike. Right. That they have a locked in rate. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And so this is going to impact both sides of that market. We see that a little bit with hash rate derivatives, but there's no real natural counterparty for those. It's just speculation.
Yeah.
Where this is going to be needed on both sides, right? So we're developing that infrastructure to be able to support that going into the future in a way, again, that doesn't expose you to additional counterparty risk with these financial institutions that are doing Ponzi-nomics with shenanigans with the rehypothecating or saying they have collateral that they don't to underwrite these financial obligations.
So it sounds to me like these are two separate products. Do they interact with each other, or are they?
Yeah. So
am I missing something?
Yeah. So you can think of it like our system is like a platform. It's a framework to deploy financial contracts on. More complex financial contracts on. So you can really do all kinds of stuff. Right now we can do collateralized lending is our first kind of application, but we'll be getting into
for people.
derivatives.
So for companies that want to do collateralized lending, they would come to you and say, hey, set this up for us.
Well, it's mostly for we're targeting companies that are already doing it.
Okay.
Because we can do it better. Okay. And save them a ton of money. Because we can, we've automated the entire process of, doing margin calls or liquidations or settlements. It all automatically happens. Like you would think how a smart contract should operate, but it's happening on Bitcoin natively with native Bitcoin. So there's no swaps or bridges or any other nonsense that could also kind of add additional risks,
Yeah.
which is what exactly we're trying to limit, is how many risk vectors that can seep into the system.
Interesting. So that's going to be the BlockSpaces. That's your guys' primary focus now.
Yeah. So
is
this
this-
is what we're raising capital on right now, and we should have our round closed, like I said, hopefully
And
30 to
feel,
60
feel
days.
free to give any details. I don't know what the legal ramifications, and obviously it's not investment advice, but if you guys are raising
Only-
funds and if you want to share, just in case there's people that are interested in talking to you.
Obviously, it's not there's no token here. We're just selling equity, and it's a safe round. So it's actually future equity stake in the company. We've already raised several rounds of venture as a company before, but with this focus on a Bitcoin native financial application, it's a pretty dynamic shift from what we were doing with just kind of infrastructure support.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have great timing because I've heard it's a really easy time to raise funds right now. So
Yeah, it's super easy. It's very tricky, but luckily, our previous rounds, we didn't have like Bitcoin focused investors. We had very institutional, like fintech oriented investors. So they have no idea what we're doing now. First of all, they're surprised we survived the markets. We've gone through a couple cycles as a company now, which is interesting, but it's also been very difficult to do that. But they just have no idea, they're not sold on Bitcoin like we are. So we're very, very focused on getting strategic Bitcoin only investors going forward for this round and subsequent rounds.
well, and this is the time when you want to be raising. I mean, not want to be raising, but you want to be actually participating because the valuations are much more competitive, and
Sure,
so people who come in now are obviously. Much better position than people that came in 21 when everything was frothy and people were throwing money at everything.
100%. Well, that's when we last raised our round at a very healthy valuation. So this round, investors are getting a nice discount.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. I mean, it's great to see companies that have survived and keep pushing forward because a lot of them haven't.
No, yeah, we are very fortunate. Well, I mean, we operate on a Bitcoin standard, which is really what saved us. So we have a majority of our assets are in Bitcoin.
Okay.
So it's actually extended our runway every time Bitcoin has a run up. So, this time since last year, Bitcoin's doubled. So that has effectively doubled our runway since that time. So that is really what kept us alive. If we had been 100% in fiat, we would have run out of money a long time ago, actually. And we are vowing to continue to do that with our new investors. We make it very clear we're going to put a vast majority of this new investment into Bitcoin itself and hold it, and just liquidate as little as we possibly can, which has also been another forcing function as a business, running a business. It keeps you very lean. It forces you to count all your costs and not, not.
Yeah, is hiring this additional person gonna leave us in a better place than just holding Bitcoin? And that forces you to really think through things.
You have to. And like there's a jump risk that you have to calculate in every decision you make as a company when you're on a Bitcoin standard. So we actually we love that it's this way, and it is and we encourage other businesses as well to do the same. Take the leap and do it. You will be grateful that you did. Just as an operator, right? Because you're going to be mindful of things you otherwise would just let slip through the cracks, and it could end up, financially ruining your company. So that would be my advice.
Well, that feeds into what I'm always preaching and banging on people about, because we get so many people that are like, oh, why would I spend my Bitcoin? I'm going to spend my fiat and get rid of that first. I'm like, no, when you move to a Bitcoin standard, you actually spend smarter. You're not going to buy crap you don't need. You're not going to waste money because you realize how precious those sats are.
Yeah.
So you can, at any time, you can convert any fiat you have into Bitcoin. So there's no reason to hold on to it.
Totally.
So convert it into Bitcoin and then spend it, and you will, I guarantee you will spend less money because it'll be painful every time you spend it. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to buy this cheaper in the future, but obviously, you need to eat now, you need to live. You don't want to defer actually living your life, and so you find that balance when you're living on a Bitcoin standard.
Yeah, that's a great point because you weigh the future costs. It's not the cost today in fiat.
Yeah.
It's what the future fiat cost is. So is that worth it? Making that investment now, you're constantly making an investment. It's not just like a buy and hodl thing, right? It's like, okay, I'm buying this Bitcoin, but I'm strategically using it where I need to, when I need to, and you're making that calculated risk all the time, which I think is healthy. It's healthy.
No,
you should do that, in your personal finances, in your business finances, no matter what, right? If you're operating off of a sound money standard, that's how you should think about all your expenses all the time.
No, and it's funny because I see people on both ends of the spectrum. One, they're like, no, I'm not going to spend my Bitcoin, but they're throwing fiat out the window at everything.
Yeah.
Not realizing they could have Bitcoin. I see people on the other side, they're like super hodl mode, but you're like, you only got so many years on this earth. Like, you got to live and enjoy life and impact other people's lives. Just going to the grave with a lot of Bitcoin is not going to do you any good either.
Yeah.
And so encouraging people to actually understand that balance between living on a hard money standard, but still living, not quit living. Because some people I see, they've quit living. It's like, you're not really living right now. Like, it's one thing to sacrifice for the future, especially when you're young, but I see some people, you're like, you only got probably 20 years left, and when are you gonna actually live? And so I think it's good to find that balance.
100%, yeah. And all the more reason to make a trip out to Bitcoin Beach over here.
Yes.
Spend a little of that coin. You can come here and spend it. I just spent it getting my taxi ride over here.
Yes, Pedro, our driver, that he's. I keep telling him pretty soon he'll be able to buy a new van with all the just from saving the Bitcoin that he's had. So. It's fun seeing people come here, and for a lot of people, a lot of Bitcoiners even that have been in the space for a long time, don't really have the opportunity to spend Bitcoin in other places. So when they come here, it's like they're at Disneyland. It's like, wow, I can spend Bitcoin there. I can spend Bitcoin. So.
Yeah, it's really something. Yeah. It really is. Like going back, what we were talking about 10, 12 years ago, how Bitcoin should be used. Actually, seeing it and experiencing it happening here is just it means it's working. It's working. It's doing exactly what we thought it would do, which is very encouraging. It keeps my spirits up and keeps me driven to make this happen, even bigger in more places everywhere, right? So yeah.
Well, I know you guys had an early morning flight, and I don't want you to miss the beach today, so we'll try to get you out of here. But is there any stuff that we haven't covered about the company? I want to make sure people know how they can get a hold of you. They follow you on Twitter. So give your shill what you got going on, so people know how to contact you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm being I do want to give this to you, being a co-author of the Thank God for Bitcoin book.
Oh, nice.
I know you probably already have a copy.
I don't have a hard.
Okay. Well, this is also one of the few that have actually all of the authors.
Wow.
It is hard to get us all in the same room at any given time.
Awesome.
Or to collect those. Oh, show it to. Okay.
You guys show the inside page. All the signatures.
There's 8 authors, so it's
awesome.
Very difficult to get that.
No,
but I had a few, and
Sweet.
I thought you should definitely have one
I
for helping us out.
Trying to see how much you've aged since you took this picture. No, you're doing okay. You're doing okay. Not much more grays
Hopefully
yet.
not.
So,
But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at
and
Gabe.
this is sorry, just real quick.
Yeah.
This here is an awesome book. I mean, it's very concise.
Thank you.
I was shocked at how well it flowed together, having 8 different authors. I've wrote a book a long time ago with 3 other guys. I know what a challenge that was, so I can't imagine having double the people. So
Yeah.
if you have not read this book yet, get it on Amazon. Thank God for Bitcoin, or from the Thank God for Bitcoin site.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
I just gotta give a little pitch
I,
for the
I
book.
appreciate the plug. Yeah, that was an interesting process, and luckily we had Jimmy Song, who's written many books and has done so with other groups. So he had a process already down.
I'm sure he did. He's very methodical in the way he does things.
Yeah, he's very structured.
Yeah.
So that was everything to organize, and because this is my first book, might be my last book. I've never even thought I would be an author. But that was an interesting experience. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Gabe B for Bitcoin, Higgins. It's just my name, nothing fancy. And you can follow BlockSpaces at blockspaces.com. And all the various social medias we're connected to there. But we're primarily targeting, financial institutions, bigger institutional players, so not much
Miners,
for retails
miners.
and miners.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working actually really closely with Bob Burnett. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with him.
Yeah, I believe I have. I'm so bad with names, and sometimes you're like, did I see him on Twitter or did I?
You
So,
probably.
yeah.
He runs the Old Man Yells podcast.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, he's a miner. So we're working closely with him. He's so involved in Bitcoin in so many areas people are just not aware of. He has his hands in everything. So he's a very interesting person to talk to. But anyway, as for me and what we're doing, we'll hopefully be announcing this new system here either next quarter or in the new year, and hopefully make a big impact.
And if there's folks out there that are interested in getting the deck to invest, they just message you on Twitter.
Yeah, you can email me, Gabe at blockspaces.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in. Even I know coming in for dental work isn't the most exciting of a trip, but hopefully,
I'm gonna get some
the
surfing
great
in.
beaches and everything else we have here will, and you don't have to get the dental work, so you can just enjoy it. We'll have to have you guys back when you're back for your next trip. Bring some more family members
Absolutely.
down.
Yeah,
Get
we're
some more work.
recommending everybody to come to El Salvador now for all your dental needs.
Awesome. Well, then when you guys make the next announcement, we'll have to do another podcast. So
We'd love to. That's
schedule that.
another good excuse.
All right. Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Mike.